Today I'm going to cover word lists in SwiftForth and Gforth. And I got a comment that says, can you make a comprehensive tutorial on word lists and how they work? So I'll cover SwiftForth first and Gforth in the second half of this video. I'll try to make a comprehensive tutorial on this. It should be pretty interesting. So if you want to use word lists in Forth, it's mainly used to separate out your code and to make it more organized. So we can actually take a look at the word list. We can see that it uses this thing called WID, which stands for the working or the word list identifier. So you can go up to help and go to the reference manual. And we can see up here that the word lists creates, a word list and returns a word list identifier. So it doesn't say much more than that. And I'm going to show you kind of how to use this word. But it also uses something called strands. And what are these? So the default setting is set to 31. And basically this is a hashing algorithm or mechanism to speed up the search process. But it doesn't tell you any more than that. It doesn't say why it's set to 31. Why can't I set it to the number 1 or 2? Well, I believe if you have a ton of words, such as what's in SwiftForth and Gforth, you need some kind of algorithm to quickly search through all this. So you can set the strands to 31. So if you have a ton of words, you should probably set it to the default 31. But if you only have, if you only have like 10 words or so, I believe you can set this to 1 or 2 and it won't make much of a difference. But that's just something to keep in mind. So we'll get started by creating a word list. And you can see on the data stack, it outputs the word list identifier. It's not going to be really useful to us, so we can make it a constant. So now we can refer to this word list as extra words from now on. So they kind of don't tell you that in the reference manual. You just kind of left to figure it out on your own. But I think I figured this out by just typing in where word list, and I was able to kind of figure this out intuitively or just by reading this code. And yeah, so definitely anytime you use this word list, you want to name your word list. And so that's just, so it's easier to read in your code. Otherwise you have a magic number and you don't want that. So to recap, all we've done is create a word list, and now we need to be able to use the word list. So what we can do is type in extra words, and we can use this word called set current. And what this does is it changes the ability to, anytime you type in a new definition, it will go into the extra words word list. So I can type in test, and this new definition test will now go into extra words. But if I type in words, all those, that huge list of words from Forth is going to be outputted to the screen. So we want to be able to search through this as well. And to do that, just type in extra words order. And so now we're going to search through extra words and we're going to search through the word or the word list forth. And I'm going to teach you later how to make this easier to read using a word called vocabulary. Because right now, we're just using the hex representation of this. So it's still kind of hard to read. But if we go back to, typing in words, we see now the only word that comes out is test. And that's pretty much how you use these two words, which is going to be order and set current. So anytime you're creating a word list, you definitely want to use those two words to set the context and to set this current. I forgot to mention the word order. It's used to display the context and the current. So the current word list that new definitions are going into is the fourth word list. The context is the current word list we are searching through. So anytime you're going to use this word quite a bit in both Gforth and SwiftForth to be able to see what you're doing in these word lists. Next, I'm going to cover the words also and previous. So all you need to do is just type in also. And what it does is it kind of duplicates the extra words word list. So this comes in handy when you want to set word lists, or you want to go back to another word list. And so if I want to kind of get rid of this, maybe I made a mistake, there's a word called previous. And that just sort of, deletes this extra word list search order that we just, set. And I can also type in previous again, and that will kind of remove this from the search order. So now we're just going to search through the fourth word list and get, that huge pile of words again. So that's how you use also and previous. Anytime you want to set things back to the default settings. So for example, we have extra words that's, currently in the context and current. We have a word called /forth, and this will just set things back to the original default settings. In addition, in SwiftForth and Gforth, there's a word called vox. You can just type that in, and these are other word lists that you can take a look at. So for example, we can take a look at the printing word list. Just type in printing plus order. So now we're going to search through that word list. And we can see that in this word list, we have some printing words. And you can kind of go through some of these other word lists to see how it's done or how they've done it. And you can get a feel for how to create your own word lists based off these kind of built-in word lists. Next, I'm going to show you a better way to create word lists using the word vocabulary. We'll just call this more words. And you would think to use this that you would just type in plus order. But doing this actually kind of erases all the search order, the context, and the current. So you're not able to even access any of these words because you've kind of eliminated you've eliminated the context and set it to nothing. You set the current to nothing, and you're able to do nothing except, put things on the data stack, but you can't, you're able to add. So the root word list is still intact. Let's see. Yeah, so a lot of these words They're just gonna disappear on you. So that's why you always want to use the word also. So if you encounter anything like that, just type in also, more words, and you can do, I believe, plus order. Let's see. It says nope. So try this again. Instead of that, we'll use another word called definitions. And this will give us what we're looking for. So you kind of have to do it a little differently if you're using vocabulary. But you can see that we don't have the hex stuff like we had when we were using extra words. So this is a lot easier to read and see. And if we type in words, we should get nothing. So we have nothing in there. Current means we're gonna, all new definitions will go in there. And so we have one word inside of more words. And that's pretty much how you would set up a vocabulary. So a vocabulary is basically a better way to create a word list because it will put in an actual word here instead of the hex value. And you can definitely see things a lot more easier. Now the final way to create a word list is going to be using the word package. And you can see that this word package contains the word Wordlist. So I'm going to show you real quick how to use the word package. I'm just going to copy this example in, and you can see that the word package is followed by a name. In this case, I've named it voltage MV. And all I'm doing is converting millivolts into volts. So I only want these words to be private. I don't want anyone to access these words. And right here, everything below public, only these words can access the private words up here. So you can see that get voltage has the word range, and right here we have the word range. So if I just type in range, I can't access this word because it's private. So this is a great way to separate things out if you don't want people to mess with the private words or things like that. So the only word they have access to is the word get voltage, which takes millivolts and outputs it to volts. So that's a great way to use the word package, and I think it's one of the best ways to create a word list. Okay, in Gforth, we also have access to the same words that are pretty much similar to SwiftForth. So if I type in order, we can see that we have a order, which is fourth, and the root word list. Also down here, you can see the order. So what we can do is go to the documentation at this website, and you can see that we have pretty much the same definitions pretty much that we had to SwiftForth. There's a few words such as, CS vocabulary, which you can create a case-sensitive vocabulary or word list. You also have access to the words also, and it's pretty similar. There's not too many differences. So what I'm going to do is click down here on vocabularies, and they have an example that we can just copy and paste to create an example word list. And I'm going to add this word definitions. because down here they say that there's something to look out for. And you can see that we have word list down here, and also it's set as the context. So if we type in words, we shouldn't have anything. And the only thing in my new words word list is the word test. So what we can do with this is we can start adding, new words to this word list. And it's very similar to SwiftForth. You can duplicate the search order like what we just did here. We can, take that off the search order, type in previous again. We're back to the fourth word list. So I believe this is the context is going to be on this side, and the current is going to be over here. So if I type in words, shouldn't see anything at the top. Go up, and you see that we don't have that word in the fourth word list. So that's a quick way to create a word list. Just follow this example. And it says that you get question marks if you do it this way. So maybe they fixed this, because when I typed this in, I don't have any of those question marks that they were talking about. So maybe in this newer version, it's different. And I guess next what we'll do is create a vocabulary, which is like what we did in SwiftForth. So just copy, type in page to erase that. And you can see that now we're going to be able to put new words in there. We can actually call it the same, and it won't overwrite what we did in the other word list. So there we go. So now in this word list, we have the word test, and we can dump all new definitions into here. So vocabulary is a great way to create word lists. If you're ever in doubt, I guess just go with vocabulary. You can use word lists if you want to, I believe, create your own custom searching algorithm or things like that. But you can go back here, and it's pretty much very similar to SwiftForth. So if you learn one, they're pretty much similar. So here you can see, why use word lists, and it even talks about the downsides. So like I said, I don't know if I said this, but debugging is a little more troublesome. Name conflicts, and you have to undo changes to the search order. So those are things to watch out for. And here's a word list example. You can follow that. But yeah, so if you have any questions, subscribe, and let me know what you think.